Madison. Wisconsin felt muffled under fresh snow, the kind that made streetlights look softer, and the whole block sound farther away. Inside Jack Monroe's living room, the only bright thing was the TV, black and white faces talking over a crackling old soundtrack that Jack wasn't really hearing. Liam was upstairs 10 years old, asleep in a Captain America t-shirt with one sneaker still on. Jack knew because he had tugged it off 5 minutes ago and set it by the bed like a quiet promise that everything was normal. Addison Parker sat on the other end of the couch, close enough that her knee almost touched his. Everyone called her Addie. She had been next door for 3 years, long enough to become part of the rhythm of the house. Soup when Liam had the flu. A spare key. A laugh that could cut through Jack's worst nights. Tonight, she was too still. Jack reached for the remote. "Want me to put something lighter on?" Addie didn't answer. She stared at the screen like it was a window, and she was deciding whether to climb out. Then her hand found his forearm. Her palm was cold, not winter cold, something deeper. "Jack," she said, and his name sounded different in her mouth, like it carried weight. "I'm dying." He blinked once, then again, waiting for the punchline that never came. Addie leaned forward and slid a folder onto the coffee table. Medical forms. Test results. A hospital logo. The paper edges were bent like she had opened it 100 times. Jack's eyes caught on words he did not want to read and could not stop reading. Stage 4. Pancreatic cancer. Metastasis. His throat tightened. The room seemed to narrow until it was only her, the folder, and the distant hush of the heater cycling on and off. "I haven't told anyone," Addie whispered. Her eyes were bright, but she refused to let the tears fall. "Not my parents. Not work. Just you." Jack's voice came out rough. "Why me?" "Because I need someone who won't treat me like I'm already gone." She drew a shaky breath. "There's an experimental program in Basel, Switzerland. It's a long shot, but it's a chance. I can't afford it, and I can't do it alone." Jack stared at the paperwork, then at her face, trying to match this moment to the woman who had stood in his kitchen teaching Liam how to make grilled cheese without burning it. Addie reached into her purse and set a small velvet box beside the folder. "Open it," she said. Jack's fingers fumbled with the clasp. The lid lifted. A diamond caught the lamplight and threw it back at him. Jack knew that ring the way he knew the sound of Liam's footsteps on the stairs. His late wife Rachel's engagement ring. Gone 3 years. Stolen. Lost to a night Jack still replayed when sleep would not come. Jack's breath stopped halfway in and his hand began to tremble around the tiny box. If you're feeling the pull of this story, please like and subscribe. Before I continue, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. Jack's fingers stayed curled around the velvet box, as if letting go would make the diamond vanish again. The stone flashed once, sharp and familiar, and his stomach turned like he had stepped off a curb that was not there. He did not look at Addie at first. He looked at the ring. The thin band, the tiny nick on the underside from where Rachel used to twist it when she was thinking the way the prongs sat slightly uneven, because Jack had chosen it himself, and never noticed the flaw until Rachel laughed and said it made it real. He remembered the night it disappeared, the broken window, the police officer's bored pen, scratching a report, the cold dread that settled in the house afterward and never fully left. How he finally managed. The word came out like air leaking from a tire. Addie's hands were clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had gone pale. "I need you to hear me all the way through," she said. Her voice did not shake on the words. It shook in the silence between them. Jack set the box down carefully as if it might bite. "Start talking." Addie swallowed. "Before I moved here, I worked for a guy named Ray Calder. Not officially. Nothing had a paycheck attached to it." She gave a humorless little breath. "He ran things through a storefront on East Washington, a place that looked like a pawn shop and smelled like old leather and cheap cologne. People came in with watches, tools, guitars, stuff they said was theirs." Jack stared at her. His mind tried to fit her into that picture and failed. Addie in her soft sweaters, Addie with flour on her cheek from baking banana bread, Addie crouched in the snow building a crooked fort with Liam. It felt like someone had handed him a photograph that had been retouched too late. I was good at being invisible, she continued. I could keep my mouth shut, and I could carry a box without asking what was inside it. Ray liked that. He called me his quiet girl. She flinched at her own words as if they still made her skin crawl. Jack's jaw tightened. And my wife's ring ended up there. Addie nodded once. I saw it about a week after it was taken. It was in a clear plastic bag on a shelf behind the counter like it was nothing. Ray had a guy who brought in jewelry. He would lay it out, and Ray would pick what could move fast. Her eyes flicked to the ring and away again like it burned. When I saw that diamond, I knew it was not just any ring. I did not know it was yours then. I only knew it was someone's whole life in a bag. Jack felt heat rise up his neck. Did you take it? No. She shook her head quick and sharp. Not then. I did not have the guts. I was scared of him, Jack. Scared and stupid and broke. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that I would leave once I had enough money for a deposit somewhere. Her lips pressed together. I kept telling myself a lot of things. He wanted to stand up. He wanted to pace to put distance between his living room and her confession, but his legs would not obey. The couch felt like it had grown roots. Addie leaned forward, elbows on her knees. When I moved in next door, I recognized your name on the mailbox. I recognized your face from the neighborhood page, the one where people post about lost dogs and snow shovels. And then I came over that first time with cookies because I was trying to be normal, and Liam opened the door and said, "Hi, my mom died," like it was a fact about the weather. Jack's throat burned. He remembered that day too. He had been grateful for the cookies, for the kindness for a neighbor who did not look at him like he was fragile glass. Addie's eyes shone, but she blinked hard. Inside on your mantle there were photos. Rachel smiling in one of them. You holding her hand in another, and on her finger was the ring. I knew it immediately. Jack's hands clenched on his knees. So you moved in next to me on purpose. Addie lifted her chin as if she had decided to stop flinching from his anger. I moved because it was the first place I could afford that was not near Ray. I did not know who lived here until I saw your mailbox. I swear that part is true. The room held its breath with him. Outside, the wind pushed snow against the window like someone tapping for attention. I tried to find it, she said. At first, I thought I could just go back in there and buy it like it was a lamp. Ray laughed when I asked about it. He said it was gone, shipped out with a batch to a guy in Chicago. Her voice caught. I threw up in the alley behind the shop. Then I quit, I left, and I never went back. Jack stared at the folder on the table, then at the ring. But you have it. Addie reached for the velvet box with 2 fingers careful. A few months after I moved here, I heard about Ray getting raided. Not arrested, just a raid. Some of his stuff got seized, some got moved. I still knew one person on the inside. A guy named Micah. He was not a good man, but he was tired. She let out a slow breath. I paid him what I had saved. Every extra shift, every tip, every dollar I could keep from disappearing into rent. He got it back out for me. Jack's voice was low. So you bought my wife's ring. I bought it back from the people who stole it. Addie's words were raw. I hated myself every time I looked at it. I kept it hidden because I did not know how to bring it to you without putting you in danger, without putting Liam in danger. I thought about leaving it on your porch. I thought about mailing it. I thought about slipping it into your coat pocket like a magic trick. Jack's eyes stung. He did not wipe them. Why did you not? Addie looked at him, then really looked, and something in her face softened into pain. Because I did not want to be a ghost in your life. I wanted you to know it was not a coincidence. I wanted you to know someone was trying to set something right. Jack felt the anger surge again, sharp and hot. By staying. By letting my kid get attached to you. Addie's mouth trembled. I did not plan for that. I did not plan for any of this. The old movie on the TV kept playing to an empty audience. A door slammed on screen. A woman cried. Jack could not tell if the sound in his ears was the film or his own pulse. Then a soft creak came from the staircase. Both of them froze. A small figure appeared at the top landing, rubbing his eyes with the back of his fist hair sticking up in a wild angle. Liam stood there in the dim hallway light, clutching the banister like it could anchor him. "Dad," he mumbled, "I had a bad dream." Jack's heart cracked cleanly down the middle because for Liam, the world was still simple enough to hold only one fear at a time. Jack forced his face into something gentle. "Hey, buddy," he said, voice hoarse, "come here." Liam shuffled down the steps, sock feet whispering on the wood. His gaze drifted past Jack's shoulder, landed on Addie, then dropped to the coffee table. The velvet box sat open like a tiny mouth. Liam stopped. His eyes widened in a way Jack recognized the look of a child seeing a memory become solid. "Is that?" Liam said, and his voice rose thin with disbelief. "Is that Mom's ring?" Jack felt Addie go rigid beside him. He could hear her breathing, quick and shallow. Jack stood up, moving between Liam and the table without thinking, not to block the ring, but to hold the moment together with his body. "Yeah," he said softly, "it is." Liam stepped closer as if pulled by a string. "Where did you find it?" His eyes were shining now, hopeful in that dangerous way children have the way they hope, like it can bring someone back. Jack glanced at Addie. She looked like she might shatter. "Addie found it," Jack said, choosing the words like stepping stones across ice. "She brought it back to us." Liam's head turned to her. "You did." He walked right up to the couch and leaned into Addie's knee like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You are the best." Addie's face crumpled for half a second before she caught it. She put a hand on Liam's hair fingers, trembling. "Hey, kiddo," she whispered. "Yeah, I did." Liam yawned, mid-sentence, the adrenaline already fading. "Can I sleep in your room?" He looked at Jack again, suddenly younger. "Just tonight." "Of course," Jack said. He scooped Liam up, even though Liam was getting heavy, because sometimes you needed the weight of your child in your arms to remember what mattered. Liam's head dropped onto Jack's shoulder, warm and trusting. Jack carried him upstairs, each step loud in his ears. In Liam's room, he tucked him under the quilt Rachel had sewn with mismatched squares of superhero fabric. Liam's eyes fluttered. "Dad," he murmured, "don't lose it again." "I won't," Jack said. He pressed a kiss to Liam's forehead, and for a moment he smelled shampoo and childhood and the ache of everything he could not control. When Jack returned downstairs, Addie was standing by the front window. The streetlight outside washed her face in a pale glow. She had her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold her ribs in place. "I should go," she said without turning. "I did enough damage for one night." Jack shut the door softly behind him, then crossed the room until he stood a few feet away. The open box and the medical folder sat on the table between them like evidence. "Stay," he said. Addie's shoulders lifted with a shaky breath. "Jack," he kept his voice steady, "I need to know everything. Not the version that fits in a sentence, the whole thing. Sit down." She turned slowly. Her eyes were wet now, and she did not bother hiding it. "You should hate me." Jack looked at her for a long moment, then at the velvet box, then back at her. His hands were still trembling, but his feet held firm. "I do not know what I feel yet," he said. "I know what I am not going to do. I am not going to let Liam wake up tomorrow and find you gone without a word. I am not going to pretend this ring walked back into my house by itself, and I am not going to pretend your folder is not sitting on my table." Addie's lips parted, but nothing came out. Jack pulled out the chair across from the couch, the one Rachel used to sit in, with a mug of tea. He did not ask permission. He set the chair facing the table and then sat in it, shoulders squared, eyes on Addie like he was bracing for a storm. Addie moved slowly, as if afraid a wrong step would break whatever fragile thread still held her here. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped again, staring at the ring as if it could judge her. Jack nodded once, a small motion that still felt like a decision. "Start from the beginning," he said. Addie drew in a breath that looked like it hurt, then let it out slowly through her nose. Her eyes stayed on the ring as if it might start talking first. "I grew up in Janesville," she said. "Not the pretty parts. My mom worked doubles at a diner until her feet went numb. My dad was there, then not there, then there again when he needed something. I learned early that money makes people loud and not having it makes you quiet." Jack did not speak. He kept his hands open on his knees, forcing himself not to grip the chair like a weapon. "I was 18 when I met Ray," she continued. "I was serving beers at a bar off the Beltline. He came in like he owned the place, tipping too much, smiling like he was doing you a favor by noticing you. He asked me what I wanted out of life. Nobody had ever asked me that with a straight face." Her voice tightened. "He said he could help, and he did. He got me an apartment, paid my deposit, bought groceries when my paycheck ran out. Then one day he put a box in my hands and told me to drop it off behind a laundromat. He said it was parts. He said I did not need to know more." Jack's stomach rolled, but he kept his face still. "The first time I asked questions, he did not get angry," Addie said. "He got disappointed. Like I had failed a test. He told me I was lucky, that I was safe with him, that other people would not be so kind. I stopped asking." She looked up then, meeting Jack's eyes at last. "I am not telling you this to make you feel sorry for me. I am telling you because you asked for the beginning, and because I need you to understand I was not born brave." Jack swallowed. "And the ring." Addie's gaze dropped again. "That was the first thing I saw that made me feel sick in a different way. Like my body knew before my brain did." She pressed her fingertips together hard. "When I recognized it in your house, it was like, I do not know, like the universe had cornered me." The heater clicked. Somewhere in the walls, pipes settled. Jack listened to the small sound so he would not have to listen to his own thoughts too loudly. "You said you quit," he finally said. "You said you left." "I did." Addie's voice went thin. "It took me months, but I did. I did not walk out with fireworks. I did it quietly like everything else. One night I packed a duffel bag, took what I could fit, and drove until I ran out of gas. I slept in my car behind a 24-hour grocery store. In the morning, I looked in the mirror and did not recognize myself. That was the first time I thought maybe I could be someone else." Jack stared at her. Anger still lived in him, but it had shifted. It was no longer a clean target. It was tangled up with the image of Addie in a car, cold and scared, and with the fact that she had still found her way back to his wife's ring. He nodded once. "All right." Addie blinked at him. All right, he repeated, voice low. "I heard you. I do not know what that means yet, but I heard you." Her shoulders sagged as if she had been holding herself upright with sheer will. She wiped her cheek, quickly, annoyed with herself. "Thank you." Jack stood and walked to the coffee table. He closed the velvet box and slid it gently closer to himself. Then he looked at the folder again, the medical words still sitting there like a threat. "Tell me about the treatment," he said. Addie's throat bobbed. "It is a trial. Basel University Hospital. They are doing something with targeted therapy and immunotherapy combined. My oncologist says it is not guaranteed. He says nothing is. But he said if I want a chance bigger than a prayer, that is where it is." 6 months, Jack said quietly. Addie nodded. "Maybe less." Jack felt the room tilt. He gripped the back of Rachel's chair and forced himself to breathe in through his nose. "Okay," he said again, but this time it sounded like he was speaking into wind. "Okay, we deal with what is real." Addie's eyes narrowed. "Jack, do not do that." Do what? Become a hero. She sat up straighter, chin lifted. I am not asking you to save me. I am asking you to help me not drown in paperwork and fear. I need rides to appointments. I need someone to read the fine print when my brain goes fuzzy. I need someone to tell me when I am being stubborn for the wrong reasons. Jack let out a short laugh that did not have humor in it. That I can do. Addie hesitated. And I need you to keep this from turning into neighborhood pity. He looked at her. You do not want anyone to know. I want Liam to have normal, she said. Whatever normal looks like now. I do not want casseroles and sad eyes and people whispering on the sidewalk. I do not want him thinking the world is a place where everyone he loves disappears. Jack's chest tightened at the way she said it, as if she had already folded herself into their grief. He nodded. All right, we keep it small. Addie's shoulders eased just a little. The next morning, Jack woke up on the couch with the TV still playing a static-filled menu screen. His neck ached. He sat up slowly and listened. The house was quiet except for the faint squeak of Liam's door upstairs. Jack climbed the stairs and found Liam sitting cross-legged on his bed, a comic book open but unread. His eyes were puffy from sleep. Hey, Jack said softly. Liam looked up. Addie still next door? Yes. Liam's gaze drifted down. She is not leaving, right? Jack sat on the edge of the bed. He chose each word like it mattered because it did. She came over last night to tell me something important. She is sick. Liam's face went still, like when I had strep. Jack swallowed, bigger than that. Liam's voice dropped, like Mom. The word cut clean. Jack felt it in his ribs. Not the same, Jack said, keeping his tone steady. But yes. Serious. She is going to see doctors. She is going to try a treatment. Liam stared at his hands. His fingers worried the corner of the comic book. Can we help? Jack reached out and covered Liam's hands with his own. Yes. Liam looked up, eyes shining but dry. She found Mom's ring. That means she is good. Jack's throat tightened again. She is good, he said, because in that moment it felt true in a way that mattered more than the past. At noon, Jack sat in the waiting room of a clinic on University Avenue while Addie disappeared behind a door marked Oncology. The room smelled like antiseptic and weak coffee. A television mounted in the corner played a talk show with the volume low. Nobody watched. People stared at their phones, their hands, their shoes. Jack held Addie's purse on his lap like a responsibility. Every time a nurse called a name, his muscles jumped. When Addie returned, her face looked smaller, and her eyes had that distant quality people get after hearing too many numbers. How bad? Jack asked quietly as they walked to the car. Addie opened the passenger door and sat down carefully, as if her bones had become fragile overnight. Same as the folder, she said, but he thinks I am a candidate. He thinks I can get into the trial if I can cover the cost. Jack started the engine. The heater blew cold at first, then warmed. How much? Addie stared straight ahead through the windshield. More than I have. More than you have. Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel. We will figure out something. Addie turned to him. Do not promise what you cannot give. He met her gaze. I am not promising money. I am promising effort. She held his eyes for a long second, then looked away. Fine. That night, Jack sat at his kitchen table after Liam went to bed. Papers were spread out in a messy fan. Scholarship forms for the trial. Travel estimates. Lists of lab work. Jack read until the words blurred, then read again. Addie sat across from him with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, a mug of tea cooling between her hands. She watched him the way someone watches a person walk toward a cliff, unsure whether to shout or trust. You do not have to do this, she said softly. Jack did not look up. I am already doing it. She made a sound that might have been a laugh if she had more air. You are stubborn. So are you. Addie lowered her mug. If you tell anyone at your school, it needs to be careful. I do not want a pity parade. Jack set the pen down. I can talk to my principal. There are community funds for medical emergencies. There are alumni who donate quietly. We do not have to make it a spectacle. Addie's mouth tightened. And if people ask what it is for, Jack paused. For a neighbor. For a friend. Addie's eyes flicked to his, then away again. Friend, she repeated like she was testing the word. In the days that followed, the house found a new rhythm. Jack drove Addie to appointments in the early morning, then rushed to school with coffee sloshing in his travel mug. At lunch, he typed emails with his classroom door shut, careful with names, careful with details. After work, he helped Liam with homework, while Addie sat at the table pretending to watch and secretly watching every breath Liam took. On a Friday evening, Liam spread a chessboard across the living room rug, pieces scattered like tiny soldiers. Addie sat on the floor with him, cross-legged hair pulled back, face pale, but focused. Knights move like this, she said, guiding Liam's hand. 2 and 1, like an L. Liam grinned. That is a weird horse. It is a very weird horse, Addie agreed. And for a moment, her laugh sounded like the Addie Jack knew the one who could make his house feel less empty. Jack stood in the doorway watching. He did not say anything. He just let the scene settle into him. The warmth of lamplight on the rug. Liam's concentration. Addie's hand steadying a piece even when her fingers trembled. When Liam finally went upstairs dragging the chessboard with him and promising a rematch, Addie stayed on the floor. She leaned her head back against the couch cushion and closed her eyes. Jack sat on the edge of the sofa close enough to reach her, but not touching. "How are you?" he asked. Addie opened her eyes and looked up at him. "Tired," she said, and scared. Jack nodded, because pretending otherwise would be a lie. "Me too." Addie's gaze dropped to his hands. "You do not have to keep doing this, Jack." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I am not doing this because I have to." Addie's throat moved like she was swallowing words she did not trust. She looked toward the staircase, then back at him. Then why? Jack stared at the carpet for a moment, at a faint stain Liam had made months ago with grape juice, and thought about the way a home holds every small disaster and every small repair. "Because you are here," he said, voice quiet. "And because Liam is upstairs. And because I cannot stand the idea of you carrying this alone." Addie's eyes filled again, but she did not look away this time. She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders as if it could hold her together, then nodded once. "Okay," she whispered. Jack reached over and picked up the medical folder from the coffee table. He stacked the papers neatly, one on top of the other, like order could make the fear smaller. Then he set the closed velvet box on top a weight and a promise sitting in the same space. Outside, the snow had stopped. The street was quiet. Inside the house held its breath, not in panic now, but in focus. Inside the house held its breath, not in panic now, but in focus. Jack felt that focus the next morning, when he opened the refrigerator and saw Addie's medication lined up beside the orange juice each bottle turned, so the label faced forward. Liam had done that. Jack knew because Liam treated anything serious like a mission. He made order where he could. Addie was at the sink, rinsing a mug that did not need rinsing. Her shoulders were bare beneath an old flannel shirt, the sleeves rolled past her wrists. She looked up when Jack came in, and for a moment her face went carefully blank, like she was testing what expression belonged here. "Morning," Jack said. "Morning." Addie kept her voice light, but her eyes were tired. Liam barreled in behind Jack, already talking. "I looked up Basel on the map. It is far, like really far. Do they have snow there?" Addie managed a small smile. "They have snow," good, Liam said, satisfied. "Snow is strong." Jack poured coffee. The smell rose familiar and grounding. He watched Addie dry her hands on a dish towel with slow, deliberate movements. Every motion looked measured now, as if she was deciding what energy she could afford to spend. They did not talk about the folder. They did not talk about the ring. Not with Liam there, and not because any of them had forgotten. At school, Jack moved through his day like he was walking through water. His students argued about metaphors in a short story, their voices bright and impatient. He smiled at the right times. He wrote notes in the margins of essays. He did not tell them his heart had moved out of its usual place and started living somewhere closer to his throat. At lunch, he shut his classroom door and called Principal Hargrove. The man answered on the second ring, voice brisk. Monroe Hargrove said, "Everything all right?" Jack looked at the bulletin board covered in student poems. He kept his tone even. "I need to ask about community support funds." Quietly, there was a pause. "For someone in your family." Jack hesitated. "Someone close." Hargrove did not pry. He only lowered his voice. "Come by after last period." When Jack got home, Addie's curtains were drawn even though the afternoon was pale and bright. The quiet next door felt heavy. Liam dropped his backpack and ran straight to Addie's porch like it was part of his routine. Jack followed more slowly, carrying groceries, watching his son knock and lean forward like he was trying to hear through the wood. Addie opened the door after a moment. She looked better than she had in the morning, which told Jack she had taken time to put on a face. "Hey, kiddo," she said. Liam held up a paper bag like an offering. Dad bought ginger ale. Addie laughed a real sound this time. "My hero." Liam stepped inside, and Jack caught the faint smell of peppermint tea. He stood in the doorway, not quite entering, letting himself register the small details. Addie's couch had a blanket folded with crisp corners. A stack of library books sat on her coffee table. On top was a battered copy of a chess puzzle book Liam had checked out twice already. Addie met Jack's eyes. "I am fine," she said too quickly. Jack did not argue. He only nodded and held up the grocery bag. "I will start dinner." He left them together. In his kitchen, he chopped onions and listened to Liam's voice drift through the wall. He could not make out the words, only the tone, the bright rise and fall that meant Addie was responding. It warmed something in Jack that had been cold for years. Dinner was spaghetti and a salad that Liam mostly ignored. Addie ate half a bowl, then pushed it away with an apology that sounded like she had said it before. "I will make you something else," Jack offered. "No." Addie shook her head. "If you start cooking separate meals, Liam will stage a rebellion." Liam grinned, mouth full. "I would." Addie rolled her eyes at him, then looked at Jack. "See?" After dinner, Liam did homework at the table, while Addie sat beside him tracing a finger under his math problems. Jack cleaned dishes and watched them through the kitchen doorway. Addie's hand sometimes hovered over Liam's shoulder like she wanted to steady him without making him feel watched. Liam chewed his pencil and leaned into her attention like it was sunlight. When Liam finally went upstairs dragging his feet because bedtime had always felt like surrender, Addie stayed at the table. Jack heard the shower start upstairs, the rush of water, and the thump of Liam's shampoo bottle hitting the tile. Addie stared at the wood grain in the tabletop, as if it might reveal something useful. Jack set 2 mugs of tea down, one in front of her, one in front of his own chair. He sat across from her, leaving space between their hands. "You did not eat," he said. Addie wrapped both hands around the mug. "My stomach feels like it is full of nails." Jack waited. He had learned that rushing her only made her retreat. Addie finally looked up. "I hate that he is getting used to this," she said. "I hate that he is getting used to pills on the counter and doctor calls and you checking your phone like it is a bomb." Jack felt his jaw tighten, not at her, but at the truth. "He's getting used to you being here," he said. "That is the part I care about." Addie's mouth trembled. "That is the part that scares me." A silence settled. Jack could hear the shower upstairs stop. Liam's footsteps moved across the hallway. Addie lowered her voice. "Do you ever think about her?" she asked. Jack did not need to ask who. "Every day," he said. Addie's eyes softened. "I'm sorry." Jack stared into his mug. Steam rose in thin curls. "I do not talk about Rachel much," he said. "Not because I do not want to. Because it feels like pulling on a thread that never stops." Addie nodded slowly like she understood more than he had said. Liam talks about her with me sometimes, she admitted. Little things, like how she used to sing off key in the car. How she cut pancakes into shapes. Jack looked up sharply. He told you that. Addie's cheeks flushed. He tells me a lot. I do not ask. He just says it. Like he is setting stones down one at a time and seeing if they stay. Jack's throat tightened. He pictured Liam in Addie's kitchen offering memories like they were fragile gifts. He has not said that stuff to me in months, Jack said quietly. Addie's eyes went glossy. It is not because he loves you less, she said. It is because you are the place where the whole thing lives. With me, it is lighter. He can touch it without falling in. Jack sat back. The words landed and stayed. He wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her she did not know his son better than he did, but he could not deny the relief in his chest at hearing Rachel's name spoken in the same room without turning it into a storm. Upstairs, Liam called down, "Dad, can you check the closet? I think my backpack is haunted." Jack blinked, pulled back into the moment. "I will be right up." He stood, then hesitated. Addie's hand rose slightly as if she might stop him, then dropped. Jack moved around the table and paused beside her chair. He did not touch her, but he lowered his voice. "Thank you," he said. Addie looked up confused. For what? For letting him talk, Jack said. For letting Rachel be real, not a shadow we tiptoe around. Addie swallowed hard. "I am not doing anything special," she said, but her voice cracked. Jack went upstairs and opened the closet door. Liam pointed at a backpack leaning against the wall. "It moved," Liam insisted. Jack lifted it and shook it. A small plastic dinosaur fell out and skittered across the floor. Liam stared. Okay, maybe it was the dinosaur. Jack laughed, a short sound that surprised him. The dinosaur is guilty. When Liam finally fell asleep, Jack sat on the edge of his bed for a minute longer than usual, watching his son's face soften and rest. He thought about Addie, across the wall alone in her apartment, carrying a weight that did not let her sleep easily. He went downstairs quietly. The living room was dark except for the kitchen light. Addie sat on the couch with the blanket from earlier pulled to her chin. The TV was off. Her eyes were open, fixed on nothing. Jack stopped in the doorway. "You should go home," he said gently. Addie's lips pressed together. "I am home," she whispered, then seemed startled by her own words. Jack walked in and sat in the armchair, the same one he had used the night before. He kept his hands visible, resting on the chair's arms. "Do you want me to sit with you?" he asked. Addie stared at him for a long moment, then nodded once. Just for a minute. The minute stretched. Addie's breathing was uneven, like she was fighting something behind her ribs. Jack watched her knuckles whiten around the blanket. "Say it," he said softly, "whatever it is." Addie's eyes shifted to the coffee table where the closed velvet box sat beneath a stack of papers. "I keep thinking about the ring," she said. About how many hands it passed through. How many people touched it like it was just a thing. Jack stayed still. "And then I think about Rachel." Addie continued, voice low. How she wore it like it meant something. Like it anchored her. Jack felt a pulse of pain. He swallowed. Addie's gaze flicked up to his face. "I did not know her," she said. "But I know what that kind of love looks like. I have watched it in your house. I have watched it in Liam without him even realizing it." Jack's chest tightened. "Addie," he warned quietly, not because he was angry, but because the air between them felt thin. Addie's eyes filled. She looked away fast, as if embarrassed by her own emotion. "I do not deserve to be here," she said. "Not with you. Not with him." Jack's voice was steady. "You are here." Addie shook her head. "That is not the same thing." Jack leaned forward, elbows on his knees. He kept his voice low so the house could stay quiet around them. "You returned the ring," he said. "You told me the truth. You are sitting in my living room right now, terrified, and still you came over and helped Liam with his homework." Addie's jaw trembled. "Because I love him," she whispered, and then her eyes widened as if she had not meant to say it out loud. Jack did not move. He simply let the words exist. Addie squeezed her eyes shut. "I love him," she repeated softer. Not like I'm trying to replace anyone. Just him, Liam. He is so stubborn and so tender. He tries to be brave in this loud way, like if he makes enough noise, the bad things will back off. Jack's throat tightened. He could not speak for a moment. Addie opened her eyes again. Her gaze found Jack's direct and helpless. "And I care about you," she added, almost like an afterthought she could not stop. "More than I should." Jack felt something in him shift, subtle and frightening. He had known it in the way his day rearranged itself around her appointments, in the way his house felt different when she laughed. Hearing it said out loud made it real. He stood slowly, not rushing her. He moved to the couch and sat on the far end, leaving a careful gap. "I care about you too," he said. Addie's breath caught. For a second, she looked like she might lean into him. Then she pulled the blanket tighter instead, as if she did not trust her own body. Jack did not push. He stared at the wall for a moment, then back at her. "Sleep here tonight," he said quietly. "In the guest room. No driving when you are like this." Addie hesitated, pride flashing in her eyes. Jack held her gaze. "Do not make it harder than it already is." The pride softened. "Okay," she whispered. Jack led her down the hall and showed her the guest room. Clean sheets, a small lamp, a folded towel on the bed. Addie stood in the doorway like she was afraid the floor might give way. "Thank you," she said again, and this time it sounded like she meant more than the bed. Jack nodded once. "Good night." He turned away before his face could betray him. In his room, Jack lay awake listening to the quiet house. Not the lonely quiet he had lived with after Rachel died, but a quiet filled with another heartbeat somewhere under his roof. It should have felt like comfort. It felt like a new kind of risk. Downstairs, his phone buzzed once on the nightstand with an email notification from Principal Hargrove. Jack did not open it. He stared at the glowing screen until it went dark again, then rolled onto his side and tried to breathe like someone who still believed in sleep. Jack woke before dawn to the faint clink of a mug in the kitchen. For a second, he did not remember why the house felt different. Then he heard it again, a careful sound like someone trying not to belong too loudly. He walked downstairs and found Addie standing in socks at the counter, her hair gathered into a messy knot. She held the kettle with both hands, as if it weighed more than it should. The guest room door behind her was cracked open, a strip of lamplight on the hallway carpet. "You should have woken me," Jack said. Addie startled, then exhaled. "I did not want to." The kettle began to whistle. She turned the stove off too fast and winced a small involuntary pinch at the corner of her mouth. Jack stepped closer. "Pain. It is fine," she said too quick, like the word could seal it shut. He reached for the mugs and poured the hot water himself. Addie watched his hands as if she was studying a language she did not speak yet. "Liam is going to smell the tea," Jack said, trying to keep the morning ordinary. "Then he will come downstairs like a bloodhound." Addie's mouth lifted a fraction. "He is already halfway down the stairs in spirit." They sat at the kitchen table, the same place where papers had covered the wood grain for days. Today it was bare except for 2 mugs, and Jack's phone face down, still carrying the weight of a notification he had ignored. Addie glanced at it. The email. Jack nodded and flipped it over. Principal Hargrove had written late a short message with a longer attachment. There was a community relief fund connected to the district. There were also alumni who donated to emergency causes quietly without press releases. Hargrove offered the gym, the cafeteria, the football field, whatever Jack needed. He had written one line that felt like a hand on Jack's shoulder. "We can do this without turning it into a spectacle." Jack read it twice. Addie watched his face. "That is a lot of help. It is a lot of possibility," Jack said, careful. Addie's fingers tightened around the mug. "Possibility attracts attention." Jack met her eyes. "We will control what we can." Addie looked down at the steam rising from her tea. "I do not want them saying my name over a microphone." "Then we do not say it," Jack replied. Upstairs, Liam's door opened. a sleepy thump, then another. Liam appeared in the doorway in pajama pants with rockets on them, rubbing his eyes hard enough to wrinkle his cheeks. "I smelled tea," he announced, and I heard whispering. "Are we planning something?" Jack tried to smile like this was a normal question for a 10-year-old to ask at 6:30 in the morning. "Eat breakfast first." Liam took one look at Addie's mug, then at her face. "You slept here." Addie lifted her hands in surrender. "Your dad made me." Liam nodded solemnly, like this was an important protocol. "Good. You are not allowed to drive when you look like a ghost." Addie blinked. "Do I look like a ghost?" "You look like a brave ghost," Liam said, then climbed into his chair and reached for the cereal. Jack turned away so neither of them could see his expression crack. By mid-morning, Addie was back in her apartment. She insisted on it stubborn in a way that was both frustrating and familiar. Jack walked her to her door, carrying her purse like it was delicate glass. She hesitated on the threshold, hand on the frame. "Thank you," she said again. Jack leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "If you start saying that every time, I'm going to start charging you." She let out a soft sound that almost counted as laughter. "I do not have money." "Then stop paying in gratitude," he said. Her eyes flicked up. For a heartbeat, the air between them tightened, full of something neither of them named. Addie looked away first. "I have an appointment at 2, she said. "I will be there," Jack replied, as if it were already decided. Addie did not argue. At school, Jack found Principal Hargrove in his office with a stack of papers and a paper cup of coffee that smelled burned. Hargrove shut the door and slid a folder across the desk. "We can fold it into the next home game," Hargrove said. "Friday night. The stadium will be full. People bring wallets when they are already excited." Jack stared at the folder. "It feels wrong to use the school. It feels wrong to let people you know suffer in silence," Hargrove said. His tone was firm, but not unkind. "Keep it general. Medical emergency. Neighbor, community. You do not owe anyone the details." Jack swallowed. "Some will ask." "Then you answer like a teacher," Hargrove replied. "With boundaries." By last period, Jack had a student council meeting on the books, and 2 kids already volunteering to design posters. The hallways buzzed with the usual end-of-day chaos lockers slamming laughter, a basketball bouncing somewhere like a heartbeat. Jack moved through it nodding, smiling, keeping his voice steady, while his mind split into 2 lanes. One lane belonged to Shakespeare and essay rubrics. The other belonged to Addie, to pills lined up by orange juice, to an airport he had never been to, and a city he could not pronounce without thinking of distance. At 2, Jack picked Addie up outside her building. She came down the steps slowly, one hand gripping the railing. Her coat was buttoned wrong, and she did not notice until Jack gently turned her toward him and fixed it with careful fingers. Addie went still breath, caught like she had forgotten what it felt like to be handled with tenderness. "Sorry," Jack said quickly, stepping back. Addie looked at the coat, then at him. "Do not be," she whispered, then cleared her throat. "Let us go." The oncology clinic waiting room was full. A toddler colored on the floor while his mother stared at the wall. An older man in a knit cap watched the same weather report repeat on the mounted television. A woman with a scarf tied around her head sat with her eyes closed, lips moving as if she was counting breaths. Addie checked in, then sat beside Jack. She kept her hands folded in her lap like she was trying to keep herself from shaking apart. Jack reached over and placed his hand near hers, not touching. An offering. Addie's fingers slid toward his and rested against them. Not gripping, just contact, just proof. When the nurse called her name, Addie stood and squeezed Jack's hand once before she walked away. Jack waited alone, staring at a poster about nutrition that made it sound like carrots could fix grief. When Addie returned, her face was carefully neutral. That neutrality scared him more than tears. In the car, Jack said, "Talk to me." Addie stared through the windshield. "My numbers are worse," she said quietly. "Not catastrophic, just worse." Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "And Basil." "My oncologist sent more documentation," Addie said, It helps. It does not change the cost. Jack swallowed. Friday night. We raise what we can. Addie's jaw clenched. I do not want your students thinking I am some tragic story. They will think you are someone who needs help, Jack said. That is not the same thing. Addie finally turned her head toward him. It feels the same when you are the one being looked at. Jack nodded once. Then you do not have to be there. Her eyes narrowed. And hide. Not hide, Jack corrected gently. Rest. Addie looked down at her hands. I will think about it. On Friday, the air turned sharp, the kind that made your breath visible and your fingers ache inside gloves. Stadium lights rose into the dark like pillars. The football field glowed green under the lamps and the stands filled with parents in school colors, students shouting, the marching band warming up with brassy notes that vibrated in your ribs. Jack stood near the concession area, where a table had been set up with a large glass jar and a sign that read, Community Medical Relief. No names, no photos, no story printed out for strangers to consume, just the plain truth that someone needed help. Student council kids handed out flyers. A choir group sang during halftime. A local bakery donated cookies. A parent had brought an old guitar for a silent auction. The noise of the game swelled and fell, and underneath it all was the steady clink of coins, the soft thud of bills landing in the jar. Jack watched people give. Some with casual ease dropping a 10 without stopping. Some with a tight expression unfolding a 20 like it mattered. A few slipped envelopes into the box and walked away fast, as if they did not want to be seen being generous. Liam bounced on the balls of his feet beside Jack, wearing Jack's old knit hat pulled down over his ears. He held a small handmade sign that said, Thank you, in block letters. Liam leaned toward him. Do you think this will work? Jack rested a hand on Liam's shoulder. It helps. Liam nodded satisfied by the idea of help existing in measurable pieces. Addie arrived just before kickoff, not through the main entrance, but from the side walkway near the track. She wore a gray beanie pulled low and a scarf wrapped high, hiding the fragile angles of her face. Jack saw her and felt his chest tighten a mix of relief and fear. She did not come to the table. She went to the bleachers and sat halfway up where shadows softened faces. She watched the band march and the players run drills, and when Liam glanced up and spotted her, his whole body lit up. He waved both arms so hard Jack thought he might fall over. Addie lifted a gloved hand and waved back small and steady. At halftime, Principal Hargrove handed Jack a microphone. The crowd noise dipped as the band cleared the field. Jack stood under the lights and looked out at a sea of faces. He saw his students. He saw parents. He saw people from the neighborhood who had never spoken more than a polite hello. He felt his mouth go dry. He did not say Addie's name. He did not say cancer. He said, somebody in our community is facing a medical emergency. The kind that makes you realize how fast the ground can shift. If you can give thank you. If you cannot, thank you for being here, for showing up for each other. His voice held. He stepped away and handed the microphone back before his hands could shake. As the band struck up again, Jack returned to the donation table and began sorting the first batch of envelopes into a lockbox. Liam stood like a guard. The game resumed. The crowd roared. Then Jack noticed the man near the fence line by the track. He was not watching the field. He was watching the stands. A tall figure in a dark coat with a baseball cap pulled low. His posture was loose, almost lazy, but his eyes moved with intention, scanning faces like he was searching for a specific one. Jack's gaze followed the man's line of sight and it landed on Addie. Addie had gone very still. Even from across the distance, Jack could see it, the way her shoulders stiffened, the way her chin lowered as if she wanted to disappear into the scarf. Her eyes were locked on that man. The man smiled, faint and cold, and began walking along the fence toward her section. Jack's pulse jumped. He slid the lockbox under the table and stepped around it, Liam's small hand catching his sleeve. Dad, Liam said, confused. Where are you going? Jack's eyes stayed on the man. "Stay here," he told Liam, voice tight. "Do not move." Liam frowned. "But Addie is up there." Jack did not answer. He moved fast, weaving through people on the walkway, climbing the bleachers 2 steps at a time. Addie's eyes met his for a fraction of a second, and he saw something raw in them. Recognition. Fear. Jack reached her row just as the man stopped at the end of it, one hand resting on the metal rail. He looked up at Addie like they shared a private joke. "Addie Parker," the man said, voice low enough that only she and Jack could hear. Addie's face drained of color. Jack stepped between them without thinking. "Can I help you?" he asked. The man's gaze moved to Jack, measured him, then slid back to Addie with that same thin smile. "Did not know you had a new life," he said, as if he was commenting on a haircut. "Nice. Real wholesome." Addie's hands clenched in her lap. She did not speak. Jack kept his voice calm. "You're at a school event," he said. "If you're looking for someone, you have the wrong place." The man's smile widened just a little. "I found who I came for," he replied. He tipped his cap slightly, a gesture that felt like mock politeness, then turned and walked away along the row, vanishing into the crowd as if he belonged there. Addie's breathing had turned shallow. Jack sat down beside her, keeping his body angled protectively, though the man was already gone. "Do you know him?" Jack asked quietly. Addie stared at the field without seeing it. "I know what he represents," she whispered. Jack waited, but Addie did not add more. Her throat worked like she was swallowing glass. Jack glanced down at the track. The man was already a dark shape moving toward the exit. Addie finally turned her head slightly toward Jack. Her voice was almost nothing. "I did not bring that to your son," she said. "I did not bring that to your school. I left it behind." Jack watched her hands tremble. He placed his palm over hers, firm, steadying. "He is gone," Jack said. Addie's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back hard. "They do not just go," she whispered. Jack's jaw tightened. He looked out at the bright field, the cheering crowd, the illusion of safety under stadium lights. He felt the edges of that illusion fray. When the game ended, Jack stayed with Principal Hargrove in the office to count. The lockbox was heavy. The bills smelled like metal and sweat. The coins clinked in uneven piles. Hargrove wrote totals in neat ink. "It is a strong start," Hargrove said quietly. Jack stared at the number. It was more money than he had expected to see in one night. It was also nowhere near enough. Outside, Liam waited with Addie near the front doors. Liam looked tired but proud, his cheeks red from cold. "We did good," Liam said as soon as Jack approached. Jack forced a smile. "We did." Addie's eyes searched Jack's face, looking for the truth he was holding back. Jack kept his voice even. "Let us get home." In the car, Liam fell asleep within minutes, head tipped against the window breath, fogging the glass. Jack drove through quiet streets while Addie sat rigid in the passenger seat, her hands in her lap. Halfway home, Addie's voice broke the silence. "His name is Troy Vance," she said. Jack's grip tightened on the wheel. "From Ray." Addie nodded once. "He used to run errands. He used to brag about how he could find anyone." Jack felt cold settle in his gut. "Why show up here?" Addie stared straight ahead. "Because he saw me," she whispered. "And because people like that do not believe you are allowed to leave." Jack pulled into his driveway and cut the engine. For a moment, neither of them moved. Snow dusted the windshield in a thin layer. Addie finally spoke again, voice low and exhausted. "I tried so hard to keep you and Liam out of my past." Jack looked at Liam asleep in the back seat, then at Addie's pale face. He did not know what to say that would not sound like a promise he could not guarantee. He reached out and covered her hand. "You are not doing this alone," he said quietly. Addie's eyes closed and a tear slipped out anyway. Inside, Jack carried Liam to bed. Liam stirred once, murmured Addie's name like it was a safe place, then fell back into sleep. Jack went downstairs and found his phone vibrating on the counter, an unfamiliar number lighting up the screen. He let it ring out, watching it until it stopped, then listened to the silence that followed as if it might explain something. A voicemail icon appeared. Jack did not press play yet. He stood there in the kitchen light, hands braced on the counter, letting his breath come in slowly, letting the fear settle into a shape he could hold without breaking. Jack stood in the kitchen light with both hands braced on the counter, staring at the voicemail icon like it had weight. Upstairs, the house had gone quiet again. Liam was asleep. Addie had slipped back across the yard after Jack carried Liam to bed, saying she wanted to be in her own space, saying it like a rule she needed to follow to stay upright. Jack had watched her cross the snow in the porch light, shoulders tight, steps careful as if the night itself might reach out and grab her. The phone vibrated once more, then settled. Jack pressed play. A woman's voice filled the kitchen, crisp and professional, the kind of voice that never had to apologize for taking up space. "Hello, Mr. Monroe. My name is Celeste Marine. I am calling from the Oncology Coordination Office at UW Health. Please call me back as soon as you can. We have an update regarding Ms. Addison Parker's international referral and funding status. My direct line is..." Jack replayed it twice as if the words might change. Funding status. International referral. His stomach tightened. He looked at the clock, then at the dark window. It was late, but not too late to knock on a neighbor's door when the news carried this kind of charge. He pulled on his coat and stepped outside. The cold hit him clean and sharp, the kind that made your lungs feel honest. Addie's apartment glowed faintly through her blinds. Jack crossed the yard and knocked once, then again. There was a pause. Then the door opened a few inches. Addie's face appeared pale in the hallway light. Her hair was down now, loose around her jaw. She held the door with one hand like she needed it to stay steady. "Jack," she said softly. "Is Liam okay?" "He's asleep," Jack replied. He lifted his phone slightly. "I got a voicemail." Addie's eyes flicked to the screen. Something tightened in her expression. She stepped back and let him in without another word. Her apartment smelled like peppermint and something faintly medicinal. A small lamp was on in the living room, casting warm light over the couch and the stack of library books. The air felt thinner than it had at Jack's house, like Addie's walls did not know how to hold two people's fear at once. Jack sat on the edge of her couch. Addie stayed standing, arms crossed, posture stubborn. "Play it," she said. Jack hit play again. When the voicemail ended, Addie's breath caught and held. "Funding status," she repeated, voice flat. "That means either no or yes." Jack nodded. "Call her back." Addie looked at him like he had suggested stepping into traffic. "It's almost midnight, and we are not talking about a routine appointment," Jack said quietly. Addie's jaw clenched. She glanced at her phone on the coffee table, then back at Jack's. Her hands trembled slightly as she took it from him. She dialed the number, pressed the phone to her ear, and paced 2 steps, then stopped, then paced again, like her body could not decide what shape to be. A click. Addie's voice changed as soon as someone answered. Polite, controlled, carefully normal. "Hello, this is Addison Parker. I got a message from Celeste Marine." Jack watched her face while she listened. At first, her eyebrows lifted, then drew together. Then her mouth opened slightly as if she had forgotten how to breathe. She pressed her free hand to her chest. "Yes," Addie said, voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, I'm here. I'm listening." Jack leaned forward, heart thudding. Addie's eyes filled, but she did not let the tears fall. Her gaze slid to Jack, wide and stunned. "Yes," she repeated. "I understand. Thank you." She hung up slowly as if the call might snap if she moved too fast. Jack stood. "Addie." She stared at her phone, then looked up at him. Her voice came out cracked. "They found a donor," she said. "Someone covered it, all of it." Jack felt his knees go weak with relief so sudden it almost hurt. He grabbed the back of the chair near the dining table to steady himself. "All of it," he echoed. Addie nodded once, sharp and disbelieving. "Basil, the program fees, the travel, housing. They said the arrangements are being finalized." Jack let out a breath that sounded like a laugh, and a sob collided. That's real." Addie's face did not brighten the way he expected. Instead, a cold focus settled into her eyes. They said anonymous, she added, and her voice hardened. They said the donor asked to remain unnamed. Jack's relief faltered. He understood in a flash why her posture stayed tight, why her shoulders had not dropped. "You think there are strings," he said. Addie did not answer right away. She moved to the coffee table and sat down, elbows on her knees, fingers laced together so tightly her knuckles whitened. "I have spent my whole adult life learning that nothing big comes free," she said. "Not from men like Ray, not from people who smile too much, not from anyone who asks you to be grateful in a way that costs you pieces of yourself." Jack sat across from her, careful to keep his voice calm. "This is through the hospital, and the hospital is full of people." Addie snapped, then flinched, as if she hated the sharpness. She pressed her fingertips to her temple. "Sorry, I'm just terrified," Jack finished quietly. Addie swallowed. "Yes." Jack leaned forward. "Celeste said anything else?" "She said the donor learned about my case through community outreach." Addie replied. "She said that is all she can share. She offered a counselor, a social worker, someone to talk me through it like I'm a teenager afraid of my first job interview." Jack kept his tone gentle. "You're allowed to be afraid." Addie's eyes flashed. "I am allowed to be suspicious." He held her gaze. "Yes." For a moment, the only sound was the hum of her refrigerator, steady and indifferent. Then Addie's voice dropped. "What if it's Troy?" Jack's stomach tightened. "He does not have that kind of money. You do not know what he has." Addie shot back. "People like him always find a way to have something, even if it is not money. They have leverage. They have secrets. They have time." Jack pictured the man's thin smile under the stadium lights, the way his eyes had landed on Addie, like she was property being counted. "It isn't him," Jack said, not because he was certain, but because the thought made his blood go cold. Addie's gaze fell to her hands. "Ray used to talk about Switzerland," she murmured. "Not the country. The idea. The place where things disappear and come back clean. He would joke about it when he was in a good mood. Like he knew how the world really worked." Jack watched her shoulders rise and fall with shallow breaths. "Addie, look at me." She looked up. Jack kept his voice low. "If someone is trying to hurt you, they do not do it by paying for the one thing that might keep you alive." Addie's mouth twisted. "Unless they want something after." Jack reached for her hand slow enough that she could pull away if she wanted. His fingers rested over hers. She did not move. "You told me you bought the ring back from people who stole it," Jack said. "You told me you left that life. You came here to be different. You do not have to go back to thinking like them. Not tonight." Addie stared at his hand on hers. Her throat worked. "I don't know how to accept it," she whispered, not without knowing the price. Jack's chest tightened. He thought of Liam upstairs, of his small voice saying, "Snow is strong." He thought of the donation jar and the envelopes and the way people had given because they could, because it felt human to do it. He thought of Principal Hargrove's line written late at night, like a quiet vow. "We raised money," Jack said. "Not enough, but we raised something. People saw the sign and they gave. They did not know your name. They did not know your face. They gave because they wanted to." Addie's eyes glistened. That was different. How Jack asked. She hesitated, then forced the words out. "Because they did not know me. They could not judge me. They could not decide whether I deserve it." Jack squeezed her hand once. "You are doing it again." "Doing what?" "Punishing yourself before anyone else can," Jack said quietly. Addie's shoulders trembled. Her voice went small. "I don't want to get my hopes up and then find out this is some trap." Jack nodded. "Then we verify what we can." Addie's eyes narrowed at his wording, but she did not argue. She only took a shaky breath, then another. After a long silence, she whispered, "They said the flight could be in 10 days. Jack felt the number land in his body like a stone. He kept his face steady. "Okay," he said. Addie gave a broken little laugh. "You say that like you're not scared." "I am scared," Jack replied. "But I am also relieved. That is allowed too." Addie stared down at her lap. What do I tell Liam? Jack's throat tightened. You tell him the truth he can hold. Addie's eyes lifted. And what truth is that? Jack looked past her at the small bookshelf by the window, where a board game sat crooked on the top shelf. He pictured Liam's hands arranging chess pieces with serious care. That you are going to a hospital far away, Jack said softly. The doctors there have a plan. That you are going because you want to come back. That you will call him. That you will remember his math homework even when you're tired. Addie's eyes filled fully now. A tear slipped free and traced down her cheek. She wiped it fast, angry at herself. Jack did not move away. He let the quiet hold them. After a moment, Addie stood and walked to her bedroom, leaving Jack on the couch with his hand still open, still offering something he could not name. She returned with a small metal box and set it on the coffee table. Her movements were careful, almost ceremonial. She opened it and pulled out a simple chain. The ring was not on it. Not yet. But Jack recognized the chain because it was the kind you bought at a pharmacy, plain and unremarkable. The kind you chose when you wanted the meaning to be in what it carried, not in the metal itself. Addie held the chain in her palm like it was fragile. I took the ring out of the velvet box tonight, she said. I couldn't stand the idea of it sitting closed like a secret. Jack's chest tightened. Where is it? In a drawer, Addie replied. Wrapped in a sock. Like I'm 12 and hiding contraband. Jack almost smiled. It did not fully form. Addie looked up at him. If someone did this for the right reason, she said, voice low, then I don't know how to live with how kind that is. Jack rose slowly and stepped closer. Then you start by not refusing the chance. Addie held his gaze, her eyes clear and raw. You make it sound simple. It is not simple, Jack said. But it is one clear thing in a room full of complicated ones. Addie's shoulders sagged as if her body finally allowed itself to feel the relief it had kept locked out. She sat back down and pressed her hands over her face for a moment, breathing into her palms. When she lowered them, she looked exhausted but less hollow. I want to believe it, she whispered. Jack nodded. Then believe it for tonight. Addie's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She flinched hard, then glanced down. A text message lit up the screen from an unknown number. You looked good under those lights. Jack felt the blood drain from his face. Addie stared at the message without blinking. Her fingers hovered over the phone, but did not touch it, like the screen might be hot. Jack's voice went low. Addie's breath came shallow again. She swallowed and looked up at Jack, eyes wide with the same question she had asked without words since the bleachers. How far will the past reach? Jack reached for the phone and turned it face down, cutting off the glow. He kept his hand there, firm anchoring. Addie's voice shook. I didn't answer, I swear. I know, Jack said. Outside her window, a car passed, tires hissing on packed snow. The sound faded quickly, but it left the room feeling watched. Addie stared at the dark glass. If he can find my number, he can find anything, she whispered. Jack held her gaze. Then we do not pretend it is nothing. Addie's throat moved, and the donor. Jack did not answer right away. His mind tried to hold two truths at once. A lifeline, a threat. Hope and danger arriving in the same week like weather. He kept his voice steady. We keep talking to the hospital. We keep the communication through official channels. We keep Liam protected. We keep you moving toward care. Addie's eyes searched his face for certainty, and found only commitment. She nodded once, small and tight. The clock on her wall ticked in the quiet. Jack stayed seated across from her, both of them listening to that tick, like it was counting down something neither of them could name, both of them holding a strange, trembling mix of relief and fear in the same breath. The clock on Addie's wall kept ticking steady as breath. Jack stayed where he was, one hand still resting on her phone, like it could hold the past in place by force. Addie did not look at the phone again. She looked at the window, at the dark glass that reflected the room back at her. Her eyes tracked the faint outline of her own face, as if she did not trust it. Give me the number, Jack said. Addie's throat moved. It's unknown. There is always a number, Jack replied, keeping his voice low. Even if it tries to hide. She hesitated, then flipped the phone over and tapped the screen with a shaking finger. A thread of messages opened. The number appeared at the top, plain and ugly in its simplicity. Jack memorized it. He took his own phone out and typed it into a note without saving it to contacts. He did not want it living in his phone like it belonged there. We should call the non-emergency line, he said. Addie's head snapped toward him. No. Jack met her gaze. Yes. Her face tightened. Jack, you do not understand what happens when I invite cops into my life. He kept his tone controlled. I understand what happens when you do not. He gets braver. He gets closer. He starts thinking your fear is permission. Addie's hands clenched in her lap. He will tell them about me. Jack paused. Tell them what? Addie's eyes flicked away. The silence was not empty. It was crowded with things she was trying to keep behind her teeth. Jack watched her carefully. Addie. She shook her head, once a small refusal. Not tonight. Jack inhaled slowly, then let it out. He could feel anger trying to spark not at her exactly, but at how many ways fear had already stolen air from the people in his house. Okay, he said, and Addie flinched at the softness of it. Then we do something else tonight. What she asked, wary. Jack leaned forward. You are not alone in this apartment with your thoughts. You are coming next door. You are sleeping under a roof where Liam can call for me if he has a nightmare. You are not going to lie awake staring at a phone like it is a loaded gun. Addie's mouth opened, then closed. Pride rose in her face, and then failed like it did not have enough strength to stand. I can't keep doing that, she whispered. I can't keep taking space in your house. Jack's voice stayed steady. You already have space in my house. Liam made you space. I made you space. Pretending otherwise is not going to protect anyone. Addie looked like she might argue, but her shoulders sagged instead. Jack stood. Bring whatever you need for the night. Addie moved slowly, as if her body had been drained and refilled with sand. She walked to her bedroom, gathered a small bag, and came back with her keys clenched in her fist. At Jack's house, the hallway light was dim, and the quiet felt deeper. Jack locked the door behind them and checked it twice without making a show of it. Addie watched him, eyes tired but alert. He guided her to the guest room. The lamp cast a warm circle on the bedspread. Addie stood in the doorway, holding her bag like it was armor. I'm sorry, she said. Jack did not let the words settle into blame. Go to bed, he said gently. We talk more in the morning. Addie nodded once. Her gaze drifted down the hall toward Liam's room, then back to Jack. If he asks, she said, voice thin, tell him I had a headache. I will, Jack said. Addie went inside and closed the door. Jack stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to the soft rustle of her moving around, then he turned and walked to the kitchen. He sat at the table where the medical papers had been, where the donation numbers had been counted, where Liam had done math homework with his tongue stuck out in concentration. Jack opened his laptop and searched Troy's number in the simplest way he could without digging into corners that made him feel like he was stepping into Addie's past. Nothing useful came up, just silence. He closed the laptop and rubbed his hands over his face. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Jack looked up. Liam stood halfway down the stairs, clutching the banister hair standing up in a soft mess. Dad, Liam whispered. I heard the door. Jack kept his voice calm. It's okay. Addie is here. Liam's eyes blinked slowly. Is she sick again? She had a rough night, Jack said. Liam took another step-down gaze, searching Jack's face, the way children do when they are trying to learn how worried they are allowed to be. Did something happen? Jack hesitated, then chose the truth Liam could hold. Someone from her old life showed up at the game, he said, quietly. It scared her. Liam frowned. Old life like before she moved here. Yes. Liam's hands tightened on the banister. Is he bad? Jack rose and walked to the bottom of the stairs. He kept his tone even. He is someone who should stay away. Liam's eyes narrowed with sudden determination. Then we make him stay away. Jack's chest tightened. He reached up and rested a hand on Liam's shoulder. We let grown-ups handle it, he said. Your job is to sleep. Liam looked unconvinced, but a yawn stole his argument. Okay, he mumbled, but if Addie needs a guard, I can be a guard. Jack managed a small smile. I know you can. Liam, Tish, turned and padded back upstairs. Jack stayed at the bottom of the stairs until he heard Liam's door shut again. Then he moved quietly through the house, turning off lights, checking the front and back doors, stopping in the living room to stare at the closed velvet box on the shelf where he had placed it like a small, dangerous altar. He picked it up, held it for a moment, then set it back down. Sleep came in fragments. Jack woke to the sound of the furnace turning onto the weight of worry in his chest, to the memory of a thin smile under stadium lights. In the morning, sunlight spread pale and cold across the snow outside. Jack made coffee and scrambled eggs and tried to pretend the smell of breakfast was stronger than fear. Addie emerged from the guest room with her hair pulled back and her face washed clean. She wore the same flannel shirt from before, sleeves rolled up. She looked like a person determined to stand. Liam was already at the table with cereal spoon clinking. He looked up the moment she entered. Hi, he said, careful like he was testing the air. Hi, Addie replied, and the softness in her voice made Jack's throat tighten. Liam stared at her for a second, then slid off his chair and walked over. He wrapped his arms around her waist without asking permission. Addie froze, then slowly rested her hands on his shoulders. Her eyes closed for a brief moment, as if she needed the contact to prove something. I'm okay, she whispered into his hair. Liam pulled back and examined her face like a doctor. You look tired. Addie nodded. I am. Liam pointed at the couch. Then you have to sit on the comfy side today. Addie's mouth lifted, fragile but real. Yes, sir. After Liam left for school, Jack and Addie sat at the kitchen table with mugs in their hands. The quiet returned heavier now without Liam's noise to soften it. Jack placed his phone on the table and slid it toward her. We can call Celeste, he said. We can ask what they can confirm about the donor. We can ask about privacy protections. We can ask if they have resources for harassment. Addie stared at the phone. Her fingers tightened around her mug. If I make noise, it draws eyes, she said. Jack kept his voice level. If Troy is already texting you, the eyes are already there. Addie's jaw clenched. She nodded once stiffly. They called. Celeste answered with the same crisp voice, then softened when she heard Addie's name. Addie kept her tone controlled. I received a message from an unknown number last night, she said. It referenced a public event. I want to know what information was shared and what was not. Celeste listened. Ms. Parker, your personal information is protected, she said. The outreach materials we received did not include your full medical records, only a summary required for review. The donor went through an intermediary foundation. We do not disclose identity. Addie's knuckles whitened on the mug. Can you tell me the name of the foundation? Celeste provided it. Jack wrote it down. Addie asked, one more question, voice low. If someone tries to interfere with my travel arrangements, can that happen? Celeste's tone sharpened in a different way. Your itinerary is handled through our office and the receiving hospital. Anyone outside those channels will not have access. Addie closed her eyes briefly. When the call ended, she sat very still, like her body was waiting for permission to exhale. Jack watched her. That helps, he said softly. It helps my head, Addie replied. My gut still feels sick. Jack nodded. We can do both. Addie's gaze dropped to the table. Jack, she said, and her voice changed. Jack felt it immediately. The air shifted the way it did right before a storm line hit. What he asked quietly. Addie's fingers traced the rim of her mug. I need to tell you something, she said. Not the version that makes me look less awful. The real version. Jack's spine straightened. Tell me. Addie swallowed. Her eyes went wet, and this time she did not bother fighting it. When I said I saw the ring at Ray's shop, she began that was true. Jack stayed silent. And when I said I never took it, she continued, voice shaking, that was true too. I did not steal it from you with my hands. Jack's chest tightened, but Addie's eyes lifted to his. But I was there, she whispered. Jack felt the words hit him like a door slamming open. There where? Addie's breath came in quick. She pressed her palm to her sternum like she could keep her heart from breaking out. The night your house was broken into, she said. I was there. Jack's ears rang. He heard the refrigerator hum the distant sound of a car outside the soft tick of the wall clock. Everything else went quiet. You were in my house, he said slowly. No. Addie shook her head hard. I did not go inside. I was outside. I was the lookout. Her voice cracked on the last word. I stood by the alley. I watched the street. I told myself it was safer that way, like that made it less real. Jack's hands curled into fists on the table. His mind flashed images he had tried to bury. The broken window. The police. Rachel's face in the kitchen light, pale and furious and shaken. The way she had touched her bare finger where the ring should have been over and over, like she could feel it still there if she tried hard enough. Addie's tears spilled, now silent. I did not know she was home, she said. I did not know anyone would be home. Ray's guy said it was clean. He said it was just jewelry. He said no one gets hurt. Jack's voice turned raw. But she did get hurt. Addie nodded, shaking. Not from them. Not directly. She squeezed her eyes shut. But from me. From what I helped do. She spent those weeks after searching drawers, checking boxes, calling pawn shops. She kept saying she felt violated. She kept saying the house did not feel like hers anymore. Jack's throat tightened until breathing hurt. Addie opened her eyes and looked straight at him. When I heard she died, she whispered, I thought it was because of what I did. I read the news. I saw the accident report. Drunk driver. Rain. A curve on the road. Her voice broke. But I could not stop thinking that even if the crash was separate, I still put pain in her last weeks. I still stole peace from your home. Jack stared at her. His mind tried to find the anger that would be simple. It was there, burning. But it tangled with other images, too. Addie on his couch teaching Liam chess. Addie carrying soup across the yard in a snowstorm. Addie sitting in the dark last night, terrified of a text message, still trying to be better than the person who stood in an alley years ago. You should have told me, Jack said, and his voice shook. I know, Addie whispered. I wanted to. I tried to tell myself I would. But every time I looked at Liam, I felt like I was holding a match over something dry. Jack pushed back from the table and stood. He paced 2 steps, then stopped. His hands went to his hair fingers, pressing hard at his scalp as if he could squeeze out the memories. Addie stayed seated small now, shoulders drawn inward like she was bracing for a hit. Jack turned back to her. Why now? He demanded. Addie wiped her cheeks with the heel of her hand. Because Troy found me, she said. Because someone just paid for a treatment I cannot explain. Because I am going to walk into a hospital far away, and I might not walk back out. Her voice shook but stayed honest. And I cannot have you waiting for me while you do not know who I really am. Jack's chest rose and fell. He looked down at the table at the scratches in the wood from years of use at the place where Liam's homework papers had been. He saw Liam's face in his mind asleep under a quilt Rachel had sewn, murmuring Addie's name like it was safety. Jack's voice came out low. Rachel is gone, he said. Addie flinched. And I cannot change what you did. Jack continued each word heavy. I cannot go back and guard my own house. I cannot put the ring back on her hand. I cannot take away the fear she felt after that window broke. Addie's shoulders shook. Jack swallowed hard. But I can look at who you are now. Addie looked up, eyes red, searching his face like she was trying to read a verdict. Jack stepped closer, then reached into his pocket and pulled out his key ring. The house key glinted in the light. He set it on the table between them, the same way Addie had set the velvet box between them on movie night. Addie stared at it confused. Jack's voice tightened. "You do not get to punish yourself by disappearing," he said. "Not if you are serious about being different. Not if you care about Liam the way you say you do." Addie's breath hitched. "Jack, I don't deserve a key." Jack held her gaze. "I did not say you deserve it," he replied quietly. "I said you are not doing this alone." Addie covered her mouth with her hand and cried silently, shoulders trembling. Jack waited until her breathing steadied enough to speak again. Then he went to the living room shelf and brought the velvet box back. He placed it on the table and opened it. The ring caught the morning light and threw it back hard and bright. Addie's eyes locked on it. Jack lifted it carefully. His fingers shook. He did not try to hide it. Addie whispered Jack. He reached for the simple chain Addie had shown him the night before. It was still on her coffee table. Plain, metal, unromantic, honest. Jack threaded the ring onto it slowly, the diamond, sliding along the chain with a soft scrape that sounded louder than it should. He held it out to her in his open palm. Addie stared at it like it might burn her. "I can't," she said, voice breaking. Jack kept his hand steady. "Take it," he said. Addie's hands hovered, shaking. Jack's voice went softer. "It survived being taken," he said. "It survived being lost. Let it survive being carried for something that matters." Addie's eyes overflowed again. She reached out with trembling fingers and closed her hand around the chain. For a moment, her fist stayed clenched, knuckles white, like she was holding on for dear life. Then her grip loosened and the chain draped through her fingers. She lifted it and slipped it over her head, letting the ring settle against her chest beneath her shirt. She pressed her palm there as if she could feel the diamond through fabric and bone. Jack watched her do it, his throat tight, his heart beating too hard. Addie met his eyes. "I'm scared," she admitted. Jack nodded once. "Me too." Addie's voice shook. "But I want to fight." Jack's gaze held steady on hers. "Then fight," he said. They sat there at the kitchen table with the morning light spilling across the snow outside, the key resting between them. The ring hidden under Addie's shirt like a vow that did not need to be spoken again. The days after Addie's confession moved with a strange double speed. Mornings felt slow, heavy with paperwork and phone calls, and nights snapped shut in an instant as if time was trying not to linger in the rooms where fear lived. Jack kept the key she had earned on the table for a while, then moved it to the small hook by the door with the rest of the house keys. Not as a ceremony, just as a fact. Addie came over most afternoons when Liam was home. She sat at the kitchen table while he did homework and pretended she was only there to help with fractions. Her hand sometimes drifted to her chest fingers, pressing lightly where the ring rested beneath her shirt. She did it when she thought no one saw. Liam saw anyway. One evening, he pointed at her collarbone with the blunt certainty of a kid who had decided something. "It is there," he said. Addie froze. "What is?" "The secret armor," Liam said. "You touch it when you get scared." Jack looked up from the dishes, water running over his hands. Addie's eyes flicked to him, then back to Liam. "It is not armor," she said softly. Liam shrugged. "Then it is a lucky thing." Addie's voice went quiet. "Maybe it is." The foundation Celeste had named sounded legitimate. Jack called the number, listened to a hold message with piano music, then spoke to a woman who sounded tired in the way people sound when they deal with too much human need. "We cannot share donor identities," the woman said, "but we can confirm the funds are secured and we can confirm they were provided without conditions." Jack held the phone between shoulder and ear while he watched Addie draw a line under Liam's homework answer. "So, no contact?" Jack asked. "No requests." "No requests," the woman repeated. "No obligations." Jack thanked her and ended the call. He did not feel pure relief. He felt the kind of relief that still kept one eye on the door. Troy Vance did not stop. He texted Addie twice more. Short messages that tried to sound casual and failed. "Miss me. You run fast for someone sick. Addie showed Jack without speaking. Her hand shook as she held out the phone. Jack stared at the words until his jaw ached, then turned the phone face down. "This is not your fault," he said. Addie's laugh was brittle. "It is not yours either, and look how that turned out for you." Jack did not argue with her pain. He walked to the back door and checked the lock, then checked the porch light, then checked the window latch over the sink. He did not announce what he was doing. He just did it. That weekend, he bought small cameras and installed them by the front and back doors. He did it after Liam went to bed, moving quietly, stepping carefully on the stairs. The next morning, Liam spotted one above the hallway closet and squinted at it. "Is that a robot eye?" Liam asked. "It is a camera," Jack said. Liam frowned. "Why?" Jack looked at his son's face, the open worry there, and chose words that could keep the truth from swallowing him. "Because I want to make sure our house stays safe." Liam nodded slowly. "Okay. Robots are good at watching." Addie kept her expression neutral, but Jack saw her fingers tighten around her mug. When the travel itinerary finally arrived, it came as a clean document with precise times. A flight from Chicago to Zurich, a train to Basel, a hospital address, a contact name in Switzerland. Everything laid out like a path drawn on paper. Addie stared at it for a long time, eyes moving down the lines as if reading it might make it less real. "It feels like a movie," she said quietly. Jack sat beside her at the table, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "It feels like a chance," he replied. Addie looked at him. "And if I take it and it does not work?" Jack did not flinch from the question. "Then we will still be here," he said, "and you will not have been alone." Her eyes filled, but she blinked and turned back to the page. "I hate how steady you are," she murmured. "I am not steady," Jack admitted. "I am just loud in my head and quiet out here." She let out a small sound that could have been agreement. The night before they left, Addie came over for dinner. Liam insisted on pizza because he said pizza was travel food. He tried to act normal, but Jack caught the way he watched Addie's hands when she reached for a slice, the way he tracked her face for any sign of pain. Kids notice everything. They just do not always have language for it. After dinner, Liam disappeared upstairs and came back holding a shoebox wrapped in construction paper. He handed it to Addie with both hands. Addie's face softened. "What is this?" "A Switzerland kit," Liam said, serious. "Open it." Addie lifted the lid. Inside were a handful of small items arranged with care. A tiny stuffed bear, a folded drawing of their street with 3 stick figures standing in a yard, a packet of hot cocoa mix, a plastic dinosaur, a note written in Liam's uneven block letters. "If you get scared, hold the bear. If you get really scared, hold the dinosaur." Addie pressed her lips together hard. Her eyes shone. Liam leaned closer. "You have to promise you will call," he said. "I will call," Addie whispered. "And you have to promise you will come back." Liam added, voice cracking just slightly on the last word. Addie's hand went to her chest again, covering the hidden ring. She looked at Jack, a flicker of helplessness passing through her face. Then she looked back at Liam. "I promise I will do everything I can," she said carefully. "Everything." Liam nodded, as if that was a contract. He hugged her fast and hard, then ran upstairs before anyone could see his face too closely. Jack drove them to Chicago before sunrise. The highway was dark and wet streetlights streaking across the windshield. Addie sat in the passenger seat with her hands folded in her lap, silent for most of the drive. Jack kept his eyes on the road. He did not trust his voice. Liam sat in the back with his hood up, clutching the shoebox. He slept in broken pieces, waking every so often to check that Addie was still there, then closing his eyes again. At the airport, everything smelled like coffee and disinfectant. Wheels rattled over tile. Loudspeaker announcements echoed. People moved with purpose, dragging carry-ons and searching for gates. Addie checked in. She kept her scarf high and her expression composed, but Jack could see the pulse at her throat beating too fast. When it was time to go through security, Liam suddenly planted his feet. "Wait," he said. Addie crouched so she was eye level with him. "What is it?" Liam stared at her, then reached out and adjusted the scarf around her neck with small, careful fingers, like he was tucking her in. "There," he said. "Now you are covered." Addie's eyes filled. She kissed his forehead, then held his face between her hands for a moment longer than necessary. "You are the bravest person I know," she whispered. Liam shook his head like he did not want compliments. "Just come back," he said again. Addie stood. She turned to Jack. For a second, she looked like she might say 100 things. Instead, she reached for his hand. Jack closed his fingers around hers. Her hand was cold, but not as cold as it had been on movie night. "You have the key," Jack said, voice low. Addie gave a small nod. "I know." Jack's thumb brushed over her knuckles. "Call when you land." "I will." Jack hesitated, then leaned in and kissed her, brief and careful. It was not dramatic. It was the kind of kiss that carried more fear than heat, more hope than confidence. Addie's eyes closed for a heartbeat. Then she stepped back, lifted a hand to Liam one last time, and walked toward the security without looking over her shoulder. Jack watched until she disappeared into the crowd. On the drive home, Liam stared out the window. The shoebox sat on his lap like a fragile thing. Jack kept both hands on the wheel and tried to keep his breathing even. "She will be okay," Jack said softly, not as a promise but as something to hold. Liam's voice was small. "She has the dinosaur." Weeks passed in a blur of school bells and grocery runs and quiet nights that felt too wide. Addie called from Zurich the first time, her face on the screen pale under harsh airport lights. Liam held the phone with both hands so close his breath fogged the glass. "I'm here," Addie said. "I'm okay." Liam asked about snow, about planes, about whether Switzerland had Captain America. Addie laughed in short bursts that sounded like she was borrowing energy. She asked Liam about school, about his science project, about whether he was being nice to his teacher. Liam promised he was, then immediately confessed he had talked in class. Addie's smile turned real for a second. "That sounds like you," she said. Jack watched from the sidearms crossed, trying not to look like he was counting every blink, every pause, every shallow breath. In Basel, the updates became smaller, sometimes a text, sometimes a picture of a gray river under a gray sky, sometimes a line about a book Jack had mailed, a single comment on a character's bad decisions. She did not describe pain. She did not describe blood tests. She did not describe the way her body felt when medicine tried to turn the tide. Jack learned to read what she did not say. He would stand in his classroom after students left, staring at his phone while the janitor's cart squeaked down the hallway. He would sit at the kitchen table late at night with Liam's homework stacked neatly to the side, rereading Addie's last message until the words lost meaning and became only proof that she was still alive somewhere else. Troy's presence did not vanish. It shifted. One afternoon, Jack found a note tucked under his windshield wiper in the school parking lot. Plain paper. No signature. "Take care of your boy. Don't get nosy." Jack's hands went cold. He crumpled the paper in his fist and forced himself to walk back into the building without breaking stride. He did not want any student to see fear on his face and carry it home. That night, after Liam fell asleep, Jack sat at the kitchen table and listened to the house. The cameras outside fed quiet images to his phone. Snow on the porch steps. An empty yard. The streetlight's steady glow. His phone buzzed. A message from Addie appeared. A single photo. A hospital bracelet on her wrist. Her fingers curved around a paper cup of tea. The ring chain, barely visible at the edge of the frame, pressed against her skin. No caption. Jack stared at it until his eyes burned. Then he saved the picture, set the phone down carefully, and rested his forehead on the table for a moment, breathing slow, holding on to the only thing he could do from Wisconsin. He kept showing up. He kept the lights on. He kept Liam's world as steady as he could make it. Jack kept the photo Addie had sent not in a special folder, not hidden behind a password, but saved like a quiet habit. Some nights he would open it, once let his eyes rest on the hospital bracelet and the faint glimpse of the chain, then close his phone and sit in the dark until the house settled again. Life narrowed to routines. Mornings meant packing Liam's lunch, tying his scarf, reminding him twice to bring his science notebook. Afternoons meant grading papers in the car pickup line, waving at parents, forcing his face into the shape of normal. Evenings meant dinner homework, and the careful work of making a 10-year-old believe the world was still predictable. Liam turned the calendar on the fridge into a project. He drew a small bear on every day Addie called. He drew a dinosaur on days she did not. "Bear days are good," he said once, tapping a square with his pencil. "Dinosaur days mean she is busy getting better." Jack nodded, because it was easier than explaining the kind of busy that came with needles and scans and exhaustion that did not leave. Addie called when she could. Sometimes she was clear and lively, asking Liam about school and telling him Basil had trams that ran like clockwork. Sometimes her voice was quiet, and she listened more than she spoke. When Jack asked how she felt, she would tilt the phone so the camera showed a window. The gray river, the pale sky, anything except her own face. Jack learned to ask smaller questions. "Did you eat? Did you sleep? Do you have warm socks?" Addie would answer those. She would not answer the questions that scared him most. Troy did not disappear. He became a shadow that moved around the edge of their days. There were no more notes on Jack's car, but once the porch camera caught a figure walking past at 2 a.m, hands in pockets, head down. The footage was grainy, the face unclear. Jack watched it 3 times anyway. Jaw tight, then saved it with the date and time. He called the non-emergency line after that, kept it clinical, gave the officer the number Troy had used, the messages the note. The officer took the report, asked questions, promised to file it. Jack did not tell Addie right away. He told himself he was protecting her. He knew deep down he was also protecting the fragile peace she had managed to hold on to across an ocean. As winter loosened into early spring, Addie's messages became shorter, not colder, just smaller, like she had to ration language. Some days it was only a picture, a book on a bedside table, a plastic cup of tea, a view of rain on glass. Jack mailed her paperbacks from his own shelf. He chose stories with stubborn characters, people who made it through storms. He tucked notes inside the covers, nothing dramatic, just details that anchored her to home. Liam lost a tooth and insisted on showing Addie on video. He leaned so close to the screen that his missing gap filled the whole frame. "See," he said, grinning, "I'm falling apart, but I'm still here." Addie laughed a real laugh, and it made Jack's chest ache with something like relief. Then came a week when there were no calls. Liam put 3 dinosaurs on the calendar and started sleeping with the shoebox beside his bed. Jack let him. He did not fight battles that did not matter. On the 6th day, Addie finally texted. Just one line. "Bad week, I am here." Jack read it and felt his shoulders drop for the first time in days. He typed back immediately, hands shaking. "We are here too." The messages after that stayed sparse. Addie sounded tired when she did call. Once she turned the camera toward her face by accident. Jack caught a glimpse of her cheekbones, sharper than before, her eyes too big in her face. She noticed his expression and shifted the camera away. "Don't," she murmured. Jack swallowed. "Okay." He sat with that image for weeks, carrying it through lessons and grocery runs, through Liam's chatter about recess and Captain America, through the quiet moments when the house felt too still. Summer arrived without asking permission. The snow disappeared. The yard turned green. Liam's bike tires started leaving thin lines in the dust along the sidewalk. Neighbors sat on porches again, waving as if nothing in the world had ever been broken. It was the kind of season that made grief and fear feel out of place, like wearing a heavy coat on a warm day. On a Tuesday evening, Jack sat on his porch steps while Liam rode his bike in loops, circling the driveway and coming back each time to report something important. "There's a new crack in the sidewalk," Liam announced. Jack nodded like this mattered. "We will survive." Liam laughed and pedaled off again. Jack checked his phone, then checked it again, then forced himself to set it face down beside him. He stared out at the streetlight and tried to breathe slow. The phone buzzed anyway. A text from Addie, only coming home. Everything changed. Jack's heart kicked hard against his ribs. He read it again, then again. His hands went cold. He stood up so fast the porch swing creaked behind him. Dad Liam called, circling back, noticing Jack's posture. "What is it?" Jack looked at his son, at the summer sweat on his forehead, at the scab on his knee, at the wide-open hope on his face. "It's Addie," Jack said, voice thick. She texted. Liam's bike wobbled. He planted his foot and jumped off, letting the bike fall onto the grass. "Is she coming?" Jack stared at the street as if he could pull a car into existence by will. "I don't know when," he said softly, "but she said she's coming home." Liam's eyes went bright. He wiped his face with his shirt and left a smear of dirt across his cheek. "Then we have to clean," he declared, like cleaning could help someone return. Jack almost laughed. The sound got stuck in his throat. They cleaned anyway. Liam vacuumed the living room twice, then lined up the couch pillows in a perfect row. He rearranged the chess pieces on the board like they were waiting in formation. Jack washed sheets and folded towels and made sure the guest room looked like a place someone could land without having to apologize for being tired. Every few hours, Jack checked the porch camera feed. Every few hours, he checked his phone. He did not call Addie. He did not want to pull at her when she had finally moved. 3 days passed. On the 4th day, the summer evening looked too calm to hold what Jack felt inside. Liam was back on his bike, circling again and again, like a small satellite that refused to drift too far. Jack was on the porch swing phone in hand, thumb hovering over the screen, even though there was nothing new to refresh. Then the sound of tires on gravel cut through the quiet. A taxi turned onto their street. It moved slowly, as if unsure it belonged in this neighborhood. Jack stood. Liam saw it too. He stopped mid-pedal feet, scraping the pavement. "Dad?" he called, voice cracking with excitement. "Is that her?" The taxi rolled past Jack's driveway and pulled into the one next door. For a second, nothing happened. The driver's silhouette shifted. The back door opened. Addie stepped out. Jack's breath caught. She looked like herself, and not like herself. Her hair was shorter, cut to her jaw in a way that made her face look sharper, more defined. She was thinner. Her shoulders looked narrower. But the way she stood was different, straighter, as if the air around her no longer pushed her down. She closed the taxi door and turned toward them. Her smile hit Jack like sunlight. Liam made a sound that was half laugh and half sob, then ran. He ran so fast his shoes slapped the pavement in uneven beats. Addie opened her arms and Liam crashed into her like he had been holding that momentum for months. Addie stumbled a step, then held him tight, pressing her cheek to his hair. "You're here," Liam choked out. "I'm here," Addie whispered. Her voice was rough, like she had used it to fight. Jack moved without thinking. He crossed the yard in 3 strides and stopped just behind them, hands hovering, unsure where to put all the feeling rushing through him. Addie lifted her face enough to look at Jack over Liam's shoulder. Her eyes were clear. Tired, yes, but clear in a way Jack had not seen in a long time. Jack's voice came out broken. "Addie." She squeezed Liam once more, then gently shifted him to her side. Liam clung to her waist, refusing to let go. Addie reached for the chain around her neck. Her fingers moved slowly, deliberately, and pulled the ring from beneath her shirt. The diamond flashed in the late sun, bright and unapologetic. "I kept my promise," she said. Jack stared at the ring, then at her face. His chest tightened so hard it hurt. Liam sniffed and wiped his nose on his sleeve. "Did the doctors fix you?" Addie's eyes softened. She crouched again so she was at Liam's level. She held the ring in her palm like a small piece of truth. "The treatment worked," she said, and her voice steadied on the words. "I'm in remission." Jack felt the world tilt, then settle into a new shape. His knees went weak. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around both of them. careful not to crush Addie, careful and desperate at the same time. Addie's hand pressed against Jack's back. He felt her fingers there, real and warm. Liam's face was mashed into Addie's shirt, his voice muffled. "I told you the dinosaur was strong." Addie let out a laugh that turned into a sob, and Jack held them tighter, breathing in the scent of summer and shampoo, and the impossible relief of her heartbeat steady against his arm. They stayed in the driveway until the taxi pulled away, and the summer air cooled against their damp cheeks. Liam still had both arms wrapped around Addie like he had decided gravity was optional. Jack kept one hand on Addie's shoulder, the other at Liam's back, holding on to the shape of them together, as if the moment might slip if he loosened his grip. Inside, Addie said, softly, voice rough but steady, "I need to sit." Jack nodded and guided them toward the porch. Liam stayed glued to her side, stepping where she stepped. At the front door, he looked up at the small camera above the frame and then back at Jack. "Robot eye did its job," Liam said. Jack swallowed. "Yeah, it did." Addie's gaze flicked up to the camera and held there for a beat. She did not ask. She did not need to. She only reached for the key Jack had given her months ago, the one that had sat on the hook like a quiet promise. She slid it into the lock with a hand that trembled, then opened the door as if she belonged there. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and pasta sauce and the faint sweetness of Liam's grape-flavored toothpaste. Addie paused in the entryway, breathing it in like it was medicine. Liam pointed toward the couch. "Comfy side," he instructed, then grabbed a pillow and placed it behind her back with care that made Jack's throat tighten. Addie eased down slowly, one hand braced on the cushion. She looked exhausted now that the adrenaline had drained away. Her eyes were bright, though, and alive in a way Jack had forgotten to hope for. Jack knelt in front of her. "Do you need water?" Addie nodded, and a minute. Jack brought her a glass and watched her drink in small sips as if she was relearning how to move without pain. Liam hovered close, hands fidgeting. "Are you still sick?" Liam asked, unable to hold it in any longer. Addie set the glass down. "I still have to be careful," she said. "I still have doctors. I still have tests." She leaned forward and cupped Liam's cheek. "But the cancer is not growing right now. That is what remission means." Liam's face tightened, trying to understand. "So it is asleep." Addie's mouth lifted. "That is a good way to say it. Yes, it is asleep." Liam nodded hard, then climbed onto the couch and leaned into her side. "Good. Because if it wakes up, we have more dinosaurs." Addie laughed, and the laugh turned into a small shaky breath. She held Liam tighter. Jack sat in the armchair across from them, the one Rachel used to claim on quiet evenings. He watched Addie's fingers drift to her chest, to the chain beneath her shirt. He watched her swallow, then reach up and pull the ring out, the diamond flashing once in the living room light. She opened her palm and held it out to Jack. Jack did not take it immediately. He stared at the ring and felt the old ache rise, sharp and familiar, then soften as it mixed with the sight of Addie alive on his couch. Liam pressed against her summer light in the window. "You brought it home," he said quietly. Addie nodded. "I told you I would." Liam leaned forward, eyes wide. "Can I touch it?" Jack hesitated, then nodded. Liam touched the band with one careful fingertip like it might bite. "It is shiny," Liam whispered, reverent. Addie watched him, expression tender and pained at the same time. Jack saw it. The way she loved him, and the way that love scared her because it had a cost. Jack finally reached out and closed his fingers around the chain. He felt the weight of the ring settle into his palm. He looked at Addie. "I do not want this to be a ghost between us," he said. Addie's eyes glistened. "Then don't keep it in a box." Jack swallowed. He stood and walked to the mantel. There were still photos there. Rachel, smiling, Liam, missing his front teeth in one, Jack and Liam at a pumpkin patch in another. Jack found a small wooden frame and slid out the back. He did not replace a photo. He placed the chain inside the ring resting against the plain fabric backing and closed it again. He set it on the mantel beside Rachel's picture. Not hidden, not worshipped, just present. Liam watched quiet for once. Addie exhaled as if she had been holding her breath for years. That evening, when Liam finally fell asleep with his shoebox near his pillow, Jack and Addie sat at the kitchen table. The house was still, but it was a different kind of stillness now. Not empty, not waiting for bad news. Just quiet. Addie placed a manila envelope on the table. Hospital paperwork printed in clean fonts and stamped with official seals. Jack did not read every line. He did not need to. He read the words that mattered and felt his shoulders drop. Remission, he said under his breath. Addie nodded. They want follow-ups here, plus telehealth with Basil for a while. Jack looked at her hands. They were thinner than before. The veins showed more. But her fingers stopped trembling when she reached for her mug. "How did you do it?" he asked softly. Addie stared into her tea. "Some days I did not," she admitted. "Some days I only laid there and listened to machines and tried to keep my head from running away with me." She looked up. "And then I would see Liam's drawing in my bag. Or I would read your note in a book. And I would remember I had a reason to stay in my body." Jack's eyes stung. He blinked hard and kept his voice steady. "You were alone there." Addie shook her head slowly. "No, I was not." Silence settled between them, thick with things that did not need to be said out loud. Then Jack asked the question that had been waiting in his chest for months. The donor. Addie's fingers tightened around her mug. "I tried to find out without tearing the whole thing apart," she said. "The hospital would not tell me. The foundation would not tell me." She gave a small, tired laugh. "Apparently, anonymity is a religion when money is involved." Jack nodded. "Did they ever give you anything?" "A letter." Addie hesitated. "Not there." Jack's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced down and frowned. A notification from his front door camera. Motion detected. Both of them went still. Jack reached for the phone and pulled up the live feed. The porch light washed the steps in pale yellow. No one stood there. Only a small package by the mat. Jack exhaled slowly. "Stay here," he said. Addie's eyes sharpened. "Jack." "It's a box," he replied, voice low. "Just a box." He walked to the door, checked the peephole, opened it carefully, and picked up the package. It was light. No return address. Only his name in neat block letters. Jack carried it to the kitchen and set it on the table. Addie watched like she was tracking a threat. Jack cut the tape and lifted the flaps. Inside was a single envelope and a small book. Not a gift book, no ribbon, no fancy packaging. A worn, paperback copy of The Count of Monte Cristo. Jack stared at it confused, then pulled out the envelope. The note inside was handwritten. "Mr. Monroe, you taught me how to rewrite the story I was telling myself. I do not want credit. I just want you to keep doing that for other people. For the record, I am sober now. 6 years. Thank you for not giving up on me. M.H." Jack's breath caught. He sat down hard in the chair. Addie leaned forward, who she whispered. Jack swallowed. "Marcus Hale." Addie blinked. "A student." "Former student," Jack said. He stared at the note as if it might dissolve. He was smart, angry, always one step from getting suspended. Jack's voice went quiet. "He came to me after school one day, told me his brother had overdosed, told me he was next." Jack looked up at Addie. "I connected him with counseling. I kept him in class when other teachers wanted him out." Addie pressed her fingertips to her mouth, eyes wet. "He did this." Jack nodded, dazed. "He did." Addie's shoulders dropped, the hard line of suspicion easing, not disappearing, but loosening. Jack set the note down carefully. "No strings," he said. Addie let out a shaky breath that sounded like release. "No strings," she echoed. A quiet knock came from the front door, sudden enough to make both of them jump. Jack's muscles tensed. He reached for his phone again. The camera feed showed a uniformed officer on the porch. Jack stood and walked to the door, opening it just enough. "Mr. Monroe," the officer said, calm and professional. "Sorry to come by late. We have an update on the report you filed." Jack's pulse thudded. "About the number?" Yes, the officer replied. We traced it. Troy Vance has an active warrant for a probation violation. We picked him up this afternoon. Jack's breath came out slow. He felt his knees loosen relief arriving in a wave that made him almost dizzy. Will he get out? Jack asked, voice tight. He will see a judge, the officer said. And you have documentation. Messages, notes, and footage. Keep everything. If anything changes, call us. Jack nodded. Thank you. When he closed the door and turned back, Addie was standing in the hallway, one hand pressed to her chest. Her eyes searched his face. Jack did not make her ask. They arrested him, he said. He had a warrant. Addie's breath shook. She sank onto the bottom stair, shoulders trembling. Jack sat beside her close enough to steady her without crowding. I hate that I brought this into your life, she whispered. Jack kept his voice quiet. He found you. That's on him. Addie stared down at her hands. I keep waiting for the part where the world takes it back. Jack watched her, then reached for her hand. Then we will live anyway, he said. Addie's fingers tightened around his. She leaned her head against the wall, eyes closed, breathing slowly. Upstairs, Liam mumbled in his sleep and rolled over. The house creaked softly, settling into the night. Jack looked at Addie. Really looked, and saw the woman who had walked out of a taxi with shorter hair and a steadier spine. The woman who had fought for her body to keep being hers. The woman who had told the truth even when it could have cost her everything. Addie opened her eyes and met his gaze. I don't know how to be normal after this, she admitted. Jack's mouth lifted small and tired. Neither do I. They sat there in the quiet until the fear stopped shouting and became something they could hold without dropping. If you stayed with Jack, Addie, and Liam through this whole journey, hit like and subscribe. And I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment telling me where you are watching from and what part of their story hit you the hardest.